This is happening right now. You know what the right side of history is, and you should be outraged, as everyone else is. Please go and complain to your politicians. I've written letters to NDP people I supported, uttering my utmost disgust at what is happening right now and the silence on this issue. Once politicians and bigger politicians start talking about this, it gets on CTV, it gets on global TV, it might even get in American news, who knows? And that's how change starts happening. But if no one is watching this, if no one is talking about this, then at the end of the day, it just keeps going. So, on Friday, the verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was revealed to the world, and it dominated the news cycle. Dominated the news cycle in Canada, as well as in America. I'm not sure how well it played in Europe. I heard mixed things. Some Europeans were telling me that they weren't hyper-focused on it. And I guess because we share a massive border, the largest shared border in the world, us, Canadians, and Americans, it was a massive thing that anyone wanted to talk about. And it was a very polarizing thing, which meant that it was internet gold. Internet currency is anger. Internet anger gets more clicks, gets more views, gets more likes. If you are angry on the internet, you're probably going to get boosted in the algorithm. That's why malding and rage works so very well, and it works way more than empathy goo. I could talk about empathy goo until I run out of it, but it's never going to get the same reactions than if I see a clip by someone, and instead of making fun of them, I get visibly mad. I am like, you motherfucking piece of shit, garbage, human trash. I can't believe this is what you think. Oh my god. Boom! Nice. So it's all over the internet now. The anger. This is fantastic. Well, while everyone was angry and talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, while the province of British Columbia was under fucking water after being burnt to a sizzle in the summer where over 500 people died, an issue that is at the core of Indigenous rights, Indigenous sovereignty, land back, as well as the environment, because it involves the corporate interests of a coastal GasLink pipeline being put through the water system of a sovereign Indigenous territory. Justin Trudeau and John Horgan decided now was a good time because we're hitting up, it's the weekend, we're going to send in a fuck ton of RCMP officers to arrest, to terrorize, to terrify the Wet'suwet'en people. And no one's going to pay much attention to it. On the internet, if you're a lefty, you probably know all about this. You probably saw a lot about it. You probably saw my retweets and my constant attempt to bring noise to this issue. If you're watching the Canadian media, it was mixed. There was some good coverage on the CBC, okay coverage on Global, shitty coverage on CTV. I could go on. In terms of the right-wing newspapers, not as much of a conversation about this, but a whole bunch of people were arrested, including one of the chiefs. And they started doing today, which I can only describe, I got the wrong thing on the screen right now, which I can only really describe as modern day blood quantuming, which, yeah, is going to be a horrifying thing to report. Jennifer Wickham is the Checkpoint Media coordinator. The arrested land defenders appeared in court today. The Gittiman condemns unreasonable and punitive actions and conditions of release. 20 people who were arrested in a 2-day violent raid on the Wet'suwet'en territory are appearing in the BC Supreme Court at Prince George today at 11 a.m. Those arrested include the Gittiman Checkpoint spokesman Slato and Dinsey, Wu's daughter Jocelyn Alec. Wu's is the chief, as well as 2 journalists. Those arrested are all facing charges of civil contempt for breaching the terms of a BC Supreme Court injunction granted to Coastal GasLink. Coastal GasLink is seeking a number of conditions of release, including denying many arrested access to a vast area of Wet'suwet'en territories. The proposed exclusion zone is the whole Maurice West Forest Service Road or any other areas accessed by Maurice Forest Service Road. Wet'suwet'en people, as determined by CGL, may be exempt from the exclusion zone for cultural activities, as defined by the RCMP, while being subjected to culture-free zones around the CGL worksites. According to this injunction, as well as Canadian law, the Wet'suwet'en people have to have access to these construction sites, and they have to be able to watch and verify and oversee what is being done there. CGL is also asking Slato to provide documentation to prove that she is Wet'suwet'en. That is right. That is happening right now. They want documentation to prove that they actually are Wet'suwet'en, and is seeking conditions that would bar her from returning to her home on Wet'suwet'en Yintasher, where her and her husband, Corey Merriman, of the Haida Nation, was also arrested, and her 3 children live. CGL is also challenging Chief Wu's daughter, Jocelyn Alec's status as a Wet'suwet'en person because she has Indian Act status with her mother's First Nation. This is blood quantum. This is modern day blood quantum. This, like, blood quantum, by the way, is not when someone like Peter Coffin goes forward and says, if I make a post saying that I'm kind of offended that a whole bunch of white YouTubers are talking about land back issues without any input from Indigenous people, and then they make a post saying it looks like Lance is doing blood quantum. That's not what blood quantum is. Blood quantum has been historically done in Canada, especially under the Indian Act, to determine whether or not you are, in fact, worthy of Indian status. It was initially done, and it also stripped women, even in patriarchal societies, by the way. Many Indigenous communities were patriarchal, but it would strip women of all of their abilities, their ability to vote, both within their own bands and their ability to vote as Canadians. They had absolutely no status in either group, which is in and of itself absolutely disgusting. Now, parts of the Indian Act are being reutilized in this sense to be able to say that these people may not be Wet'suwet'en after all, and if they aren't determined to be Wet'suwet'en under our identification of them, then they don't have the right to be able to inspect or oversee the developments and construction that are going and taking place right now. This is abhorrent, it's disgusting, it's racist as fuck, and it's happening right now in a court of law in Canada today. According to Jen Wickham, the media coordinator for the Gilgamesh Checkpoint, Coastal GasLink proposed conditions of release are punitive, unreasonable, and in targeting Slato and Jocelyn, completely racist and sexist, allowing a private corporation to determine two Indigenous women's identities, and allowing this corporation to deny our inherent rights to be Wet'suwet'en in our territory is a very dangerous precedent. This is colonial gendered violence that is the root of the crisis involving the missing and murdered Indigenous women, Two-Spirit people. Even though Coastal GasLink is trying to intimidate us through colonial court systems, we are Wet'suwet'en strong. Under the governance of our hereditary chiefs, there will be no pipeline on our Yinta. In granting an injunction to Coastal GasLink, Justice Church recognized that the Wet'suwet'en are posing significant constitutional questions. And this is what the judge said. This whole thing is posing significant constitutional questions. But this is not the venue for that analysis. Now is not the time to talk about how this could be breaking treaties. Now is not the time to be saying that this may be unconstitutional in Canada. Now is not the time to talk about how this may be violating UNDRIP and all the other things that Canadians have agreed to operate by. Now is not the time. Now is not the time. However, the 1997 Supreme Court of Canada ruling clearly affirmed that the Aboriginal title, the right to exclusive use and occupy land, has never been extinguished across 55,000 square kilometers of the Wet'suwet'en and the Gitxaalen territories. I want this to go to the Supreme Court of Canada. I want this to go from the BC Supreme Court to the Supreme Court of Canada, where I have confidence that it will be ratified and put a huge dent in this entire project. That will be an expensive proposition. I'm going to talk to some other people, see what we can do in terms of helping fundraise the legal woes that will be done. But I think that is a necessary thing that needs to happen. This needs to go all the way to the Supreme Court, so finally it can be something that is respected by both the federal government of Canada and the RCMP if they're doing this. Now, a lot of people complain on this show, I don't do enough theory. Lance, you don't read theory on stream. Why don't you talk about theory? Theory is the basis for all things. Well, I happen to be reading an absolute banger right now, The Wretched of the Earth, and I know, shame on me for reading this for the first time, by Frantz Fanon. It's incredible. It's just, not only is it an easy read for people who don't like to read theory, but it has so many parts in it that just speak to the current thing that is happening. So, story time. I'm going to read you one paragraph that I think directly applies, even though this was written a while ago, directly applies to what is happening right now to Wet'suwet'en territory. The colonized world is a world divided in two. The dividing line, the border, is represented by the barracks and the police stations. In the colonies, the official legitimate agent, the spokesperson for the colonizer, and the regime of oppression is the police officer or the soldier. In capitalist societies, education, whether secular or religious, the teaching of moral reflexes handed down from father to son, the exemplary integrity of workers decorated after 50 years of loyal and faithful service, the fostering of love for harmony and wisdom, those aesthetic forms of respect for the status quo, instill in the exploited a mood of submission and inhibition, which considerably eases the task of the agents of law and order. In capitalist countries, a multitude of sermonizers, counselors, and confusion mongers intervene between the exploited and the authorities. In colonial regions, however, the proximity and frequent direct intervention by the police and the military ensure the colonized are kept under close scrutiny and contained by rifle butts and napalm. We have seen how the government's agents uses the language of pure violence. The agent does not alleviate oppression or mask domination. He displays and demonstrates them with clear conscience of the law enforcer and brings violence into the homes and minds of the colonized subject. Could not be more prescient. Incredible. Awesome writing. Can't recommend this book enough. All right? Not even using his essay voice. It's very accessible in terms of theory. And we could all use more black theorists in our lives, I will say. And it's also very good. Surfer McGritty! Subscribe to Tier 1. 10 months, baby! Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all ever notice the Lance Never Talks theory? Fuck! There's no winning! There's no winning! God damn it. Let's see if there's any updates. Allowing a private corporation to determine Indigenous women's identities and allowing the corporation to deny our inherent rights to be Wet'suwet'en in our territory is a very dangerous precedent. This is colonial gendered violence that is at the root of the crisis of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. Even though Coastal GasLink is trying to intimidate us through colonial court systems, we are Wet'suwet'en strong. Under the governance of our hereditary chiefs, there will be no pipeline in our Yinta. In granting an injunction to Coastal GasLink, Judge Church recognized that Wet'suwet'en are posing significant constitutional questions, but said that this is not the venue for that analysis. Let's bring this to the fucking Supreme Court then. I could not agree more with that. Indigenous people should not have to comply with industry and government decisions to deny their Indigenous rights. They should be the ones allowing them to go through. If the Wet'suwet'en people have said overwhelmingly that yes, we agree, we'll sign these contracts and agreements and we will allow you to go through our sovereign Indigenous land, I have nothing to say about this, okay? Then it is a completely different issue and matter. We are calling for the release of all Wet'suwet'en and land defenders and for the BC and Canada to uphold Indigenous title rights and institute a moratorium on fossil fuel expansions in the wake of clear and present climate catastrophes, including the LGL is not clean energy and is not a renewable fossil fuel. For more information, you can go to here. Here's the Legal Defense Fund. Going to post it. If any of you have $1 to spare, obviously look after yourselves first. If you're having trouble paying your bills, do not consider donating to anything in general. Pay your own bills. Look after yourselves. That should be primary, by the way. Everybody, look after yourselves. I mean that. Look after yourselves mentally. Look after yourselves spiritually, however you do. Look after yourselves financially. Look after your close loved ones, your friends and family. Make sure that that is taken care of. If you are in a position after you've done all that to then donate money to other causes, even content creators, then go and do so. But please looking after yourselves. You will be no help to anybody if you are in the middle of a crisis or having a breakdown or whatever it is. You should be looking after yourselves first and foremost, and then go help other people. There's been numerous calls to action around the world. I saw some happening in London. I saw some happening in Australia. They may be small, but it's still incredible to see people in other countries standing up for this issue, because it is an issue that I think affects us globally. If you happen to be a humanist like myself, then you understand that this is less an issue about one person or over another. This is about all peoples being free. Arrested land defenders are in court today. Ginneman condemns unreasonable and punitive conditions of release. Support the legal fund. And I just did a link there. I'll tweet this out. And I'm going to talk in the future maybe about doing a fundraiser, because again, I want this to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I have utmost confidence that it would win. I think they have legal precedent. And guess what? So does the federal government. The federal government, the Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, has come forward and said, by the way, everybody, this is a clear-cut case of land-backed sovereignty being infringed upon. And that's why I think they're trying to do as much action as they can right now. Because should this go to the Supreme Court, I think that they would suffer a terrible loss, and that would put a huge halt into these pipeline plans. Even though there is a weather emergency, provincial cabinet ministers didn't utter a peep when officers were deployed to protect the pipeline this weekend. This week, someone asked to provide context regarding the RCMP recent arrest of Indigenous land defenders on traditional Wet'suwet'en territory. It's pretty simple. Enforcing private law is so much easier than investigating criminal offenses. With injunctions, all the Mounties need to do is set up an exclusion zone and then grab anyone, including journalists, including the fucking press, who venture beyond the RCMP boundary. So far, 32 people have been taken into custody, according to the land defenders, including photojournalist Amber Bracken, documentary filmmaker Michael Toledano. And these are, by the way, this photojournalist is the one that has taken just the jaw-dropping photos that you've probably seen a year ago in relation to the original crisis that was happening here. Last year, Public Safety Minister and Solicitor General Mike Farnsworth authorized the BCRMP to redeploy resources within the Provincial Police Service. This enabled the Mounties to dispatch a large number of members into traditional Wet'suwet'en territory and enforce an injunction obtained by Coastal GasLink. This has been done Article 9.1 of the Provincial Police Service Agreement. Farnsworth has since been elevated to Deputy Premier. He acts by Premier John Horgan's absence and seeks treatment for throat cancer. Did Farnsworth authorize RCMP to redeploy the Provincial Police Force? If so, it seems like an odd time to redeploy police resources when so many roads and highways have been washed away in the midst of unprecedented flooding. Like, it's just so jaw-droppingly asinine. Why are you doing this at this time? There's an emergency, a public crisis right now. The province is underwater. Now was the time to utilize this RCMP force, since we're not going to be defunding it anytime soon, to go and aid people, to assist people who are, like, people need medical supplies, people need food supplies, people need to be transported out of areas in emergency crises. Now is not the time to go and attacking Indigenous people on their sovereign territory. What a waste of resources. The statement declared that there's considerable damage to the Lamprey Creek Bridge, 44 kilometers north of Morris Forest Road. In addition, there's a service vehicle on fire. BCRMP statements indicate that officers are enforcing an injunction obtained by Coastal GasLink. But again, if you state that you're setting up an injunction and then you say that, well, anyone who passes this line is now in violation of this injunction, you are going to permit things like the press not to be able to be allowed in. The press aren't allowed to go in there. The press aren't allowed to take photos or videos. The only reason we have pictures and stories of what is happening here is because brave people who are in that area right now are posting it on the internet. They're using the power of the internet once again to run anti-propaganda information.
We are peaceful, we are unarmed, but we are powerful, and we don't fear you.
We are only few here. I'm an elder of this Yinta, Acacia territory. All I want to know is what your intentions are. I want to speak to your DLT. Any responses?
We are praying, we are in ceremony. You must wait. We have water protection ceremonies happening. This is the sacred waters that we are in ceremony with. What are your intentions? You are not.
Right now, or you're in civil contempt of a court order and be arrested. Do you understand? Hey, I'm not.
There's an elder here, man.
There's an elder here.
You're under arrest.
There's an
You're under
elder
arrest.
here. No, I'm media.
You're under arrest.
I am media.
You're under arrest. Go. You're under arrest. Go. You're under arrest. Get up.
So, to people who have messaged me before asking what can we do, how can we help, I'll post it once again. There's a legal defense fund. If you have $1 to spare, it's now in both chats. You can go check that out. You can also visit the websites and make noise. If you have a Twitter account, retweet their stories. If you have a platform, tell their stories. If you have a content creator with a bigger platform, please remind them in chat that this is still happening and it's happening right now. Get them to talk about it. That's the best thing you can do. The more they try to silence this story, it helps them win. Because if the eyes of the world aren't watching this, if the eyes of the world aren't outraged by this, then it allows them to keep doing what they're doing. Politicians only respond to immense public pressure, especially the craven politicians in Canada who are either trying to turn their ears off while this is happening, bury their faces in the sand, or come out and say, well, this is just a matter of the provinces exerting provincial jurisdiction. Let's see what the courts say, etc., etc. No, this is happening right now. You know what the right side of history is, and you should be outraged, as everyone else is. Please go and complain to your politicians. I've written letters to NDP people I supported, uttering my utmost disgust at what is happening right now and the silence on this issue. Once politicians and bigger politicians start talking about this, it gets on CTV, it gets on global TV, it might even get in American news. Who knows? And that's how change starts happening. But if no one is watching this, if no one is talking about this, then at the end of the day, it just keeps going.
This will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.